So it's that whole story from slavery, emancipation, the creation of the steel pan, or the steel pan created the Trini, because there was no Trini before 1951. There was an island with Black people, Indian people, Chinese people. There was no Trini culture, a unified Trini. So in 1951, through the steel pan, they wanted to do a tour in London, and the government blanked them. They didn't give them any funds. So they had to actually do a fundraiser through the whole country. And that's the first time the whole nation united behind one cause, which just happened to be behind a steel pan cause.
Hello, everyone. Back to a second episode of my podcast. And today, we discuss a lot of ideas, developmental ideas and Caribbean ideas to help our Caribbean reach the intellectual level, firstly, and then on a physical level. So today with us, we have Mr. Stuart Fortuné. He is a seasoned marketing and business consultant with over 16 years of expertise in consumer goods, technology, and entertainment. Wears many hats in the world of entrepreneurship. He is armed with an international master's of business development from Arthur Lock Jack Global School of Business and a bachelor's of science in management studies from the University of London. Mr. Fortuné is a force to be reckoned with in the corporate world. As the author of the acclaimed debut novella From Ibadan to Heliad, he's going to tell us a lot more about. He's going to tell us a lot more about this book. I'm excited about hearing about the title of this book. I hope I'm pronouncing it properly. Mr. Fortuné has earned a permanent place in Trinidad and Tobago's President's Residence Library and the esteemed Nalis Heritage Library. Notably, his work was nominated for the prestigious 2024 Booker Select Fiction Award and crowned as the Caribbean Book of the Week, boasting a stellar 4.9 ratings on Amazon. This is who we will be discussing with today. Good evening, Mr. Fortuné. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, Kevin. You mind me calling you Kevin?
Yes, that's okay. You can go ahead.
I'm great, Kevin. I'm great. Great in Trinidad. How is it in St. Lucia?
Oh, St. Lucia is St. Lucia. It's good at the moment.
Right.
The weather is fine over here, but
Right.
we are not without our little aches and pains.
But that's life. That is life.
Yes.
Life will be good without challenges.
Trust me. So that's one of the things that we are going to delve straight into. We are going to delve into today. We are going to discuss our topic, which is the cultural voice, a tool for a higher purpose. And tell us, I think I didn't do justice in pronouncing your book. Can you tell us the title of your book and give us a little insight in your book and what's that about?
The name of the book is From Ibadan to Heliad. Ibadan to Heliad.
Is that a place?
Ibadan is in Africa. So there was the Oyo Empire, and at the decline of the Oyo Empire, the Ibadan grew out of that decline of the Oyo Empire. And that is really where plenty of the slaves would have come across, and the Yoruba culture would have come across into our hemisphere. So there's a strong Yoruba presence in Cuba, a strong Yoruba presence in Trinidad, and also in Brazil. So the story is really of that journey from the slaves coming across, how the slaves emancipation came about, how that emancipation, okay, let's put it this way. After emancipation, the former slaves and the former slave masters supposed to have the same rights to express their cultures on the street and to just be free, because everyone free. But yet somehow in Trinidad, and not just in Trinidad, but across the world, there were a lot of tricks that were played to keep the people under control. A lot of mental tricks, a lot of mental gymnastics. So the story really tells how after our emancipation, how those, well, it outlines the tricks that were done in Trinidad to bring us back onto the plantation. Because after emancipation, the labor force had disappeared from the plantations. So they had to do a lot of different things to get people back to work, which they successfully did. And so the story goes from slavery, emancipation, after the emancipation, the battles, which created the steel pan, and how that steel pan created the Trini identity, and how the Trini identity was then leveraged for independence. Now, Heliad is Trinidad All-Stars. That is the popular Trinidad All-Stars steel pan, which just won the Panorama competition this carnival season here. So it tells the story again of how the slaves were able to create the yards, because that's something that we did in Trinidad. We created the yards to try to maintain the culture. After emancipation, they'll have a yard set up somewhere, another yard set up somewhere, and each of these yards will be localized places where you could still express, you could still beat your drums, you could still express your Africanness.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
These
great.
yards have subsequently been criminalized. So it's that whole story from slavery, emancipation, the creation of the steel pan, or the steel pan created the Trini, because there was no Trini before 1951. There was an island with Black people, Indian people, Chinese people. There was no Trini culture, a unified Trini. So in 1951, through the steel pan, they wanted to do a tour in London, and the government blanked them. They didn't give them any funds. So they had to actually do a fundraiser through the whole country. And that's the first time the whole nation united behind one cause, which just happened to be behind a steel pan cause.
And that's where I'm going to butt in. That's a good place for me to come in, because partly some of our objective in this conversation is discussing the mental slavery that has inhibited us as Caribbean people for a very long time, and to break that mental slavery. It's always like when you live in a tyranny, because mental slavery is a tyranny in some sense. You are moving from one tyranny and we are going to something else. And if we have to if we have to identify the mental slavery and we have to live the mental slavery, that means we'll be going to some other land. So we will be passing through the desert in some sense before we get to the promised land, so to speak. So to me, what the promised land that we can think about right now as a set of young thinkers on the block is partly the unification of the Caribbean based on a collective story. Because we cannot run away from the fact that majority of us have the foundation story of coming from Africa, and that mental slavery that was played on us for the purposes that we are going to discuss later. But to specify the fact that we can build or we can agree on a collective story on a Caribbean level to further unify us, like Trinidad was unified behind the steel pan story. I think there's an opportunity for us to do that on the Caribbean level, because the reason why this might be a very interesting aim and a very formidable aim for us as Caribbean people is because of globalization and the global ideologies that is now relevant in our values and our identity. So we are fragmented in the Caribbean, but I think we have a unified story underneath all our fragmentation. But if globalization would be able to dump its ideologies and its identities onto us in the Caribbean, we might lose that over a long space of time. And again, one of our biggest problems is we don't know where we are, we don't know where we come from, we don't know our identity, and we're busy picking up other identities like suits that other persons have given to us, and we don't understand part of that mental slavery is putting on an identity that's not you. But before we delve into it, I would like to hear your story as an individual, as you move. I don't think that you just woke up one day and just say, okay, I want to write a book. And what's your story like? Or what was your childhood like? what interest? Why did you find yourself up to this point, up to writing a book to bring out what you bring out? So how did you think you get to that?
Okay, well, before I even get there, you mentioned something just now about the globalization and the mental slavery and the whole Caribbean coming together. You know, it's so funny, right? It's so funny. We could only do that when we start to look at Haiti with some respect, because that is a whole colonialism thing there that going on, that have us in the Caribbean looking down at Haiti like if that's not our own brother. Haiti was one of well, not one of, it was the most powerful plantation in the whole Caribbean because of the attempts to punish it for the Toussaint Louverture rebellions. The whole globalist movement has even brainwashed us, Haiti's brother, to look down at them as inferior and obia people and cannibals and all sorts of different things. So just touching on what you said just now there, it's very deep. It's very, very, very deep. All right. In terms of my book, I was lucky enough to know my history, to know, let's say, more of my history than most people will know. So for instance, when I was a young boy growing up, my grandmother on my mother's side always used to tell me, you know, my great grandmother, she was a Madras Indian, and then she got raped and so on. That's how come our complexion got a little lighter. So on my mother's side, I always knew from a little boy that along the line, someone was assaulted, and that happened. On my grandfather's side, on my father's father. Again, as a little boy, I will go home by him, and he will have pictures in his living room. Two of the pictures were one of his great grandfather and one of his grandfather, I believe. And it's portraits of them as slaves. So the wife and the husband sitting on, well, one sitting on one side up and the shackle around the leg. And that's the family portrait as a slave, right? So again, some people might say it's fortunate, but I think it's fortunate that I was able to see these things from a young age and understand these things from a young age. So that certain things that carry fly with me now. I understand certain things better than many other people might, which again was very fortunate. And then even on there's a book, Corsicans in Trinidad, which tells the whole history of the Corsicans from Italy in Trinidad. And there's a picture in that book. There's a guy, he's a splitting image of me, right? That's Paolo Maria Giuseppe. He came across from Italy, Corsica, Italy, in 1661, I believe, in the 1600s. And he looked at the splitting image of me, because that is going back. So there were actually books what I could have read and known my history. In fact, the Giuseppe coat of arms is based on the whole Joseph story out of Egypt, because Joseph, when he left Egypt and they ended up in Italy, the name changed from Joseph to Giuseppe. So luckily, again, I just was able to understand so much about not just my grandparents, but their grandparents, and going all the way back, you know. So that always gave me an interest in terms of history, and not just history, but justice and injustice, you know, abuse, taking advantage of people, resilience, survival. You know, I always had those sort of ideas in my mind.
So let me just butt in right there. It's a very important point that you made, and I just want to see how we can for the purpose of the viewers, so that they could understand very clearly why knowledge of who you are is very important in guiding what your past is very important in guiding the decisions you make in the present, and it's very important to specify a future aim. So you said you had a lot of time to you had the privilege to see and understand a lot of your great grandparents and how they lived and the difficulty they went through. You actually saw spitting images of people that look exactly like you, an individual that look exactly like you, and what's your further history down many generations, what it was and what contributed to it, to the degree that you can understand that. What did that do to you when you understood who you were in history in some sense? What feelings came with it? What sense of awareness came with it? What happened to you when you understood who you really were, and what happened to bring you into this earth? Because you mentioned that a great grand a parent got raped, and that's why you had the complexion. And I mean, understanding all that, what did it do to your thinking? What did it do to your awareness? What did it do to your mission? What did it do to you?
Well, to answer that question, honestly, it will depend on what age I was. As a teenager, you know, you digest it, you understand, you know something wrong somewhere. But I still wouldn't have considered myself knowing myself as a teenager or younger. It's still a journey because there's so much distraction, so the globalization, so many forces telling you those things are important. Forget that, forget your past, move forward. But when they try to tell you those things, because they know the importance of you knowing your past. So they know it's very important for you to forget your past. So again, when I was younger, it was just things that I was confused about. I wanted to get a better understanding, but not something you could really discuss with any and everybody like that. But as I got older, specifically with the book, when I started to do the research on the book, it started to make a lot more sense. So I wouldn't use the word rebellious. It could be more the word outlaw. They start to understand, okay, well, these are the rules of the world. The world is an unjust place, and it's always best to know yourself and make decisions for your family moving forward based on that information. It's not just about going with the flow of things out there. So knowing yourself, understanding the journey, not you, but collective, you and your family would have made. It's very important for you to continue that journey, not get distracted and make bad decisions and end up in major problems. But going back to the question you asked me before, in terms of how I came about to write the book, it was really during the COVID, and so I was doing research about the history. Because I was looking at Vikings, and Vikings is the history of certain people. Barbarians is the history of Germany and Germania before it came Germany, how the tribes came together. They do it in the same way that these people do their myth building, the hero building tales. So it was really doing the research, getting deep information, not just surface level information, listening to the interviews from the people who went through the struggles themselves, going back and reading interviews and looking at as much information as I can grasp. And in that journey, you understand the connection between your history and the wider history. So for instance, when you're doing the history and you understand, okay, well, in the 1800s, this was going on, you could say, okay, well, that's the only time my great-great-grandfather was around, and they could piece together certain things. They say, okay, well, in the 1930s, that's when my grandfather was around, so he could piece together certain things, and the history now becomes personal. It's not just, it's not just a fossil that you will find in a museum. There's living fossils, it's living history. And I am living, you are living history. We are part of our journey. After you pass, hopefully others will also follow from your line as well. So it was a very enjoyable, emotionally challenging at times. Things of identity and resilience. My things are made, but I'll go for it, right? Unless you know yourself again, right? Anybody could tell you anything and you'll believe it. Okay? I'll use as an example. If someone is dropped off in the St. Lucia airport, and two people are picked up in the St. Lucia airport and driven a mile away. One is blindfolded, one doesn't have a blindfold on. The one who doesn't have the blindfold on will easily find their way back to the airport if asked to. The one who's blindfolded may have some challenges. They might have to stop and ask someone, you know where the airport is? And they had to go with whatever that man say and hope that man tell them the truth. Right? So it's really painting the picture as to the reality of the past so that no one could really, because we all know the stories we are given as the stories of the victor. Right? They always ask, what about the other half that's never been told? So I really want to position that other half that's never been told. So as many people read it, they will understand the games that are being played with us. They'll understand which direction is the direction forward and which direction is the direction back. There's a movie called Jones Plantation. Not the greatest movie, but I like it. Okay, I like it. And there's a scene in the movie where the guy was explaining. He said, if you grasp a snake, it will strike out and bite and try to escape. But if you hold it gently and let it flow from hand to hand, it will eventually get tired and rest in the palm of your hand where you have full control over it. So that's what the book is to try to avoid people from doing, from moving from hand to hand, taking this distraction, look over here, look over there, look over there. So because we know getting tired in the palm of the oppressor hand and just lying down and taking whatever they give us. Right? So it's about moving away all the distractions, knowing the true history from the side that not the loser side, but is definitely the other half side that no one wants to talk about. Once you understand that history, the map is laid out in front of you.
So in some sense, I'm asking while you speak, saying our history as a Caribbean people, and I'm trying to develop my mind in a way I don't just think of St. Lucia. I tend to think wider than St. Lucia, Caribbean in some sense. Our history as a Caribbean people, because majority of us, we were brought here, not us in some sense, we were born here, but our ancestors were brought down here under the slave trade. Can you tell me something about the slave trade? Is that something that you came across your research?
All right, well, let me put it this way. Let me ask you a question. Do you know the average lifespan of a slave in Haiti back in the day?
Not sure.
5 years. So from the time they reached in Haiti, 5 years later, they were dead. And that is why there was the revolution in Haiti, because every month, every year, a new batch of slaves coming in that haven't been broken as yet. As I said, we've been here for a long time. So, I mean, in Trinidad, we got broken. Across most of the other Caribbean islands, we got broken. But in Haiti, every month, a new batch of people come and saying, but what going on here? I didn't sign up for this. No? And running away and running to the mountains and the maroons and the black Jacobins and all these different things. So they had a whole different experience with slavery. So our experience, when I say our, excluding Haiti, the rest of the Caribbean, we've been totally broken. If they say, I'll put it this way, they tell us you have to dress, look like, speak like them to be considered successful. You know, to elevate in life, you have to dress like a certain way and look like them, man, you know? Or else you're nothing. Haiti didn't have that. Sure, you the Caribbean, all of us trying to fight up to this level that even if I get there, you're never going to be accepted. You know, so I mean, I said I'm going to say some controversial things.
Yeah, that's just on this podcast. It's free speech. We give you and I believe your free speech is important for thinking. There is no creative thinking without the ability to speak freely. And if you are speaking freely, you can see whether or not your thinking patterns are. And that's what I try to do, to see whether or not my thinking patterns are grounded in any form of truth and reality. So you could go, it's not about controversial, it's about what you experience. And all of our experiences must amalgamate together to formulate truth. That when you talk about the breaking process, do you know a guy called Willie Lynch? Have you read this book?
Yeah, the Willie Lynch letters. Yeah, the Willie Lynch letters. Yeah.
Willie Lynch letters. And do you know about the breaking the breaking process, the breaking process of the African woman? Just to for in the view the hearing of our viewers, just let them know what that breaking process entails. And this is something I look deep into, because the breaking process it's more of a psychological thing, the mental slavery that we are going through right now. And we must talk about, and I would like us to talk about whether or not that we have escaped that mental slavery, or did they reformulate that mental slavery in a way?
No, we haven't.
To take up certain ideas, and how do we move forward from that? Because we need to continue the fight. Like you said, we don't want to be in the arms of the oppressor, falling asleep and being comfortable because the oppressor is feeding our stomachs. So we sell our soul for bread in some sense. So that's one of the things that I see that your book can be igniting in the hearts of young people who participate in reading that book, to see that there is a fundamental objective truth, and that objective truth is not grounded in any race in some sense. It's grounded in the structure of reality and existence, and it cannot be a slavery versus oppressed versus oppressed narrative. It also have to be a victor narrative. Just let me just read the breaking process of a woman. That's how they go. Willie Lynch used those things to be able to make us docile at the way that we are docile right now, especially our men. And that's why I try to develop the men so much. Listen to what Willie Lynch said. He said, take the female and run a series of tests on her to see if she will submit to your desires willingly. Test her in every way, because she is the most important factor for good economics. If she shows any sign of resistance in submitting completely to your will, do not hesitate to use the bullwhip on her to extract that last bit of resistance out of her. Take care not to kill her, for in doing so, you spoil good economics. When in complete submission, she will train her offsprings in the early years to submit to labor when they become of age. Understanding is the best thing. Therefore, we shall go deeper into the areas of the subject matter concerning what we have produced here in the breaking process of the female nigger. We have reversed the relationship in her natural uncivilized state. She would have a strong dependency on the uncivilized nigger male, and she would have a limited protective tendency towards her independent male offspring, and would raise male offsprings to be dependent like her. Nature had provided her for this type of balance. We reverse nature by burning and pulling a civilized nigger apart and bullwhipping the order to the point of death, all in her presence, by her being left alone, unprotected, with the male image destroyed. With the male image destroyed, the ordeal caused her to move from a psychological dependent state to a frozen independent state. In this frozen psychological state of independence, she will raise her male and female offsprings in reverse row. For fear of young males, for the fear of the young male's life, she will psychologically train him to be mentally weak and dependent, but physically strong. Because she has become psychologically independent, she will train her female offsprings to be psychologically independent. What you have got the nigger male, the nigger woman out front, and the nigger man behind and scared. This is perfect situation for sound sleep and economics. So what he's basically saying, and that's what exactly is happening to us in our communities, you see that majority of that breaking process, it had to be with the breaking of the woman and breaking of the family, so to speak. So when you break the family, you take out the natural tendency for the woman to raise the child in the proper roles. We have a lot of males that have been raised by their mothers to be psychologically weak, but physically strong. And a psychologically weak man is a man that do not have proper control of his emotions. He does not have proper control of himself. He leaves the home. He participates in violence. He participates in all of the things that would not be able to push us forward as a people. Our men are falling short. And people will say, okay, but that's not a problem. It's not biblical. I'm telling them, but you know, anytime somebody wants to tyrannize in civilization, tell you what they do. They're speaking from the Pharaoh point of view, but they tell you that in the books that they write. In the Pharaoh, what the first thing that he did? He said, kill all the male children. He said that. If you want to take and you want to enslave people, you have to break down the strongest warriors. And you have to make the strongest warriors think that they're weak. So the man image in his head, he's weak. He's docile. He seeks only pleasure. He doesn't have a vision. He don't want to build his community. He don't want to build his nation. He continuously the eternal victim. Despite the fact that we went through slavery, he makes that his excuse. That I'm a slave. Slavery did that to me. But he doesn't have the psychological fortitude to see, okay, this is what happened. I can still look up. I can still make a difference. I can still build my community. I can still take care of my children. I can still be a present father in the home. I can still have all these attributes. Tell you what they say, those things are written by white men and it's not true, and that's not what we're supposed to do. And that same kind of thinking that they have is the same thinking that destroying the community. You have fatherless children, you have one man with about 10 children. All of those things are the psychological weakness that they put in us for us to participate and to continue keeping ourselves down in the barrel. And we accept that slavery. We accept that mental brainwashing, that soft man thinking. And we have our women at the front, and we're busy in the ghettos, drinking, not be taking responsibility for our nation, not taking responsibility for the development of our state, not doing the things that are necessary to be done. And we say that we break the mental, we have broken the mental slavery. We have broken through the mental slavery, but the mental slavery is still acting on us right now. That's exactly what Willie Lynch did. He's in his letters, he said that's what he did. He said it.
It's programming, it's full programming, and it's difficult to chastise people for it, because that's what they born and grow up with, that's what their mother, because of the love of the mother, not wanting to see her son be hung or to be attacked or abused. You know, she's so protective. But that, as I said, that is a problem, because you raising up a son to be docile and to accept what the boss tells you to do. You know, and that's a problem we have across the whole Caribbean. That's why we don't really have that many patterns and inventions in the Caribbean, because we are not the people to create, we are the people to work.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. and I say that all the time. I say the same brain these fellas have creating all kinds of things. So you tell me my brain is different. So you tell me my brain is black, so my brain cannot think of the things I'm thinking of.
Although the black is what create everything in the past. But no, we're not good enough.
No, but that's
they what copy everything from the brain, but now we're not good enough.
We're not good enough. And we're accepting that. We're accepting that's our role and our position, to be the ones that work down.
Because you want to fit into society. You want to fit into the culture. You don't want to be the only man to Afro the shiki. No, I'm being serious. The girl is not going to take you on. Everybody in the neighborhood will laugh at you. You might be picked on because you different, you outside, you expressing your strong Africanness, but yet you're the only person, you're the outside, you're there to be ridiculed. You know, even when one of our ministers or parliamentarians went into parliament wearing a shiki, he was ridiculed for it. Stop wearing all of the shiki, come in, you know, dress properly for parliament. Now, what is properly? What is properly? Again, you have to look like us, dress like us, talk like us, or else you're not good enough. You know, it's a full programming.
So with that, we're just going to look at well, I think and that's, let's move into, there's this author called Francis Kwame Nkrumah. You can look into him. He was a Ghanaian politician. He was a political theorist and a revolutionary. He served as a prime minister of the Gold Coast from 1952 to 1957. When he gained independence from Britain, he was the first prime minister and then the first president of Ghana from 1957 to 1960, from 19 to 1966. And tell you what he said. One of the things he said that he actually wrote a book called Neocolonialism. You can look into that. Neocolonialism. That's the last stage of imperialism. And what he's saying is that the essence of neocolonialism is that the state, which is subject to it, is in theory independent and has all the outward trappings of international sovereignty. In reality, its economic system, it is an economic system, and thus its a political policy is directed from outside. The methods and form of this direction can take various shapes. For example, in an extreme case, the troops of an imperial power may garrison the territory of neo-colonial state and control the government of it. More often, however, neo-colonialist control is exercised through economic and monetary means. Do you know what this means? Am I clear? You hear me? Tell you what this means? All of this means that
You just outline what happened in Niger with France.
Thank you very
With the
much.
central bank. You just
Thank
outline
you.
that.
Thank you very much. And he wrote about that from 1950. That's the neocolonialism. They want to give you certain ideas. They want to give you certain ideologies. So they're not coming in with weapons. They're not coming in with soldiers anymore. No, that's the old colonialism. That's back then. That's too harsh. They come in with, they'll give you certain ideologies. They will tell you certain things that you should accept. And if you don't accept it, we're not funding any programs in your community. We're not funding any programs in your country. So right now,
it's worse than that. They may just have a coup in your country. They just may.
Listen, the coincidence. You just have you might just have the same thing that's happening right now in Haiti. You might just have a gang of people that take over the country. Just a gang.
Yeah, and they have the Kenyan police force. They sent them across Haiti. It's the same thing. A police force, right? You know what? With Niger and France, didn't France have ECOWAS ready to invade Niger on their behalf? Then we have the whole of the Western African side, that ECOWAS, trying to get involved and trying to promote the fact that there's some sort of a coup that's happening in Niger, as opposed to the reality of what was really going on. So you understand that it's not a monolith. Black people is not a monolith. It's not as though everybody's trying to get together. Everybody has their own economic issues to deal with, their own social issues to deal with, and their own brainwashes they're trying to deal with as well. So it's a challenge. And going back to Haiti, I will say it again, we in the Caribbean, we look down at Haiti. We're not supporting Haiti in any way. When Haiti does rise and they start on us, I hope we could take it. I hope we could take it. When they start on us, yeah, I hope we could take it.
So what my thing to you now is like to be able to work and solve a problem like that, because that problem we're looking at it from the top, like at the top of coming from outside in. So those ideologies that they're enforcing on us via policy and via economic necessity, and us the individuals on the ground, we live from the bottom up. So I'm saying, what kind of belief system or what kind of code of ethics that we must adopt as individuals that would be able to hit against what's coming from the top? So, and well, that's one thing I always believe. That's one thing I understand. Ideologies embedded in policy is what's caused us to, that's where the brainwash comes in, because the ideologies, they want you to put it inside of the policy, and the policy what guides our behavior. For example, the building a godless society, saying there's no such thing as God. We have multiple gods. We have no higher value. We have no higher ethic. I keep telling people keep saying like a belief in God is not an African thing. People don't, where
African are very spiritual people.
But that's exactly where it started. The first civilization was Mesopotamia. The first well-civilized, educated people is in Mesopotamia, in that space in Africa right there. And we are very spiritual persons. We're connected to the higher force. We're connected to God, so to speak. And you cannot have a free and sovereign nation if you cannot have an enslaved nation if you have people believing in God, because God gives you free will. God gives you that freedom. So by stripping God away from the people and stripping God away from the schools and stripping God away from the policies in the nation, you can come in and you can enslave them. Or you can give them a false
belief. Yeah, because now you.
Because now, say that.
Now you are God.
Thank you.
Now you are God.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And you are not.
So you, whatever you tell them to do.
And you are not held accountable for your action, because you are the morality maker. There's no other higher morality above you that you have to succumb to. So you have to try to destroy that. So that's why we see the first towards atheism, the first towards nihilism, the first towards all those things. And I'm telling people, like, you want to see, like, we want to break the brainwash, and all of those things are, and there's to some degree you can see where persons use the name of God for control. And that's terrible. I'm not going to run away from using
to a large degree. To a large degree, that But I always tell people, just because someone did that, that doesn't mean that God is bad. People, we do a lot of nonsense. People always trying to get a way up on someone else. So if they see something, some verse in the Bible, and they say, well, I could keep those slaves to work hard if I tell them, and they must honor their master. Right.
Yeah.
That is the only line I would not tell them. Because remember, they carry, right? So I could stand up on the pulpit and just repeat that over and over and over and over. Right? They don't know the rest of the story, they don't know the rest of the book. But I would just go try and select certain lines, certain things that benefited me. So, but that had nothing to do with God.
Thank you very much.
Nothing to do with God, as far as I see.
Thank you very much. So neocolonialism is what we should be watching out for. And the trajectory that you're moving towards with your book and the story itself, when you say from it's a journey I could see from one place to the next. And it's like you were moving from a bad place. That's the Ibadan. That's Ibadan.
Ibadan. It's not a bad place.
Yeah, so
it's a great place.
So you're moving from
great
a great place, and you go into
it's just that was stolen. Sorry.
So you were moving from a great place, and
you move from a great from home, and then you were just thrown into the situation where you're being abused. And the good thing about Trinidad is we didn't wait until emancipation to occur for us to start to express our freedom. I don't know if that's a similar thing in St. Lucia, but in Trinidad, before emancipation, we were laughing at the plantation owners, laughing at the dress, laughing at the dance, making fun of them, because we had something called the sugar harvest riots, which was before emancipation, where, everything in Trinidad is a wine and jam, right? So the slaves, when they have the harvest of the sugar, they will burn the sugar cane, and they will have everyone will be drinking and partying, the slave side. And the slave master side, they will have the celebrations, the marsh gras on the plantation. But in Trinidad, on one of those sugar harvests, the slaves ran in and beat up some white people and wind up on some of the white women. And that still happens to today in Carnival. You'll see somebody just run up on a white woman and start wine on her. I wonder where that came from. But anyhow, so that occurred way before slavery ended in Trinidad. And because of that, we had lost the faith of the slave master. They were able to eventually grasp it back and put us back in our place. But yeah, we had lost that faith. We had lost that faith. We were doing whatever we wanted with them, It's just sad that everything kind of reversed, because from the time the yards started to pop up and those yards right now are considered the hot spots in Trinidad. The Belmont, the Lavantil, the Dry River, all these spots where the heroes of the country lived and fought for the freedom after freedom was given. Those are hot zones. You know why? Because they fighting against us. So from now on, we have to police them all the time. We have to.
I saw a documentary about Lavantil documentary, one of the hot spots where officers don't go on. They were interviewing a musician there, and he said he got shot like twice. He nearly lost his life. And the interviewer was walking through Lavantil, and it was like normal. The image they paint of the people inside of it. But from where I was viewing it, the safety of my home and looking at it on my screen, it looked like normal human beings to me. It looked like people that is in a rough situation. And what he was explaining is that the government would like to remove them from that area, so they were causing that war for them to kill out each other.
Well, they want to remove them for one reason, that Lavantil is one of the best real estates in the country. When you go up St. John, Lavantil, you have the full view of Port of Spain, the whole ocean, everything. Prime real estate if you had a hotel. Right? So why these people should have that property? In their minds, I could make real money if I had that, So make things difficult for them. Property value drop. I could buy acres and acres for $1,000. I just calling figures, right? As opposed to the real property value. But it also goes back to the fact that these are the areas that were always fighting against the slavery. Fighting against the oppressors. So we have to put guns and drugs in all the communities, so they will war against each other. Or they need to not know who the real enemy is. You know, we have to put a lot of obstacles in all your way. Because again, is as I said earlier, it's a big plan. These people brilliant, you know. They're brilliant, you know. When they come to the evil, they're brilliant.
Yeah.
Lavantil is just like any Trinidad.
Yeah. And it was looking like a real
Good people, bad people, ambitious people, lazy people, you know.
The human condition. Yeah.
That is it.
Yeah.
That is it. But the thing is, again, when you live in Lavantil and you're trying to maintain, okay, well, I'm from Lavantil. I know my grandfather, he was this big leader in the community. I know my father, he was this leader in the community. I go and be a leader. But so from the time you take up that leadership, man, from the time you put a crown on your head to say, well, I'm trying to help my people, it's not going to happen.
It will come for you.
My targets.
But one of the things I've known about the human spirit is almost impossible to enslave it. Almost impossible to enslave the desire of the human being to want to possess that gift of free will that was given to us, to be able to choose the way that we deal in a situation. And I read this book from
it's quite easy actually. You have to make it feel like they're free.
Yeah, yeah, that's a way to try. But then they will go to the borderlines of the cage to find out, hey, but why can't I go over there? And that's exactly why I read this book from Viktor Frankl, The Man's Search for Meaning, and he was saying between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is the human being's ability to choose the response. In the response, not the situation, not the deterministic situation. In the response comes the power and the freedom. The ability to choose your way, to choose how you react to a certain situation, the ability to think, the ability to speak your being forward. These things that are very important. And even right now, we are seeing the pushback on free speech. And the pushback on free speech is another way to try to imprison people and to stop people from thinking and to speaking against the injustices that is being in the system. So with that,
well, see, it's all about control again. So the same people who are complaining about people don't have free speech, once you have your free speech and you're executing it against them, now all of a sudden free speech is a problem.
Yeah.
At one point in time, and I will come to a topical issue with this whole Israel-Palestine issue, right?
Yeah.
At one point in time, let's say the Republicans were all about this free speech. These people supposed to, we're not on cancel culture at all. Now that the situation not reflecting too well on them, we have to, okay, free speech is not a real thing, you're allowed to protest, but you can't cause chaos, So they try to tell you how to protest now, protest in a nice way. Don't do too much damage to us.
So there's a thought process that said when you lost, because what unifies people or what unifies countries or what unifies relationship in some sense is a collective aim. If all of us come together to say we are moving towards that aim, that is a unification for us. And if we remove that valuable aim, we fall into what you call a power struggle. So we are not unifying our efforts to do something on a collective level, because that collective aim, that valuable aim, we remove it. So we are looking to compete against each other. So right now on the political level, I do not know what your views are on the political level, the Republicans and the Democrats. I see on the Republican side, they make a fair argument for certain things, but on certain aspects, I have my reservations on that. Because the philosophy of the Republicans is that there is a hierarchy, and we have to maintain order, and that order is being able to be participating in a competent hierarchy. But the Democrats is saying, yeah, but the hierarchy is too structured, and the hierarchy is tilted towards one race. But what I disagree with the Democrats for is trying to dismantle and destroy the fundamental aspects of having a hierarchical structure. We need order, and we need order to maintain a civilized world in the midst of the chaos that can emerge if we don't have order. But I agree that the order can be way too tyrannical, and I agree that the order can be tilting in a systematic way towards one set of people. But throwing the baby with the bathwater, and that's what I tell our people that. So the Democrats is selling us something, but we were running towards what the Democrats say, but we're not thinking of it logically. And the Republicans telling us something. So I have to choose between the Republicans and the Democrats. To me, both of them are using Black people. Both of them are two white men that want power against each other. None of us do have real power. They're trying to play us against the middle. So if we're taking a stunt, you know what? The structure, the hierarchy, it's important. That is the foundation of existence. We need a structured society. But that structured society must build on fairness, justice, competence. And if we see that there are certain things, because as human beings, people try to put one over each other, we have to have a good enough justice system that will stand and say, this is how things must be done. But we cannot run towards the Republicans with the racism and run towards the Democrats with the moral relativism. There's no thing as God, atheism, and no, like we cannot take any side in that war, in that war right now, and we're taking sides. But I'm saying we are supposed to be the peacemakers. We're supposed to be the ones that the voice of reasoning. We that highly spiritual. We that connected to a highest level. So why are we running behind the white man over there, running behind the white man on the left, running behind the white man on the right, taking sides, when both the sides are completely corrupted and co-opted? That's my view on politics.
Well, I mean, even in Trinidad, I don't get caught up in this PNM UNC nonsense. At the end of the day, whoever in power will make decisions. Once they get that seat, whatever you said in your campaign, it should not even do. Because now you're in the reality. Before you was marketing, now you're actually doing the job, right?
Yeah.
Before you was applying for the job, in the interview, you're telling the interviewer anything. Yeah. I'll be the greatest employee. I'll be the greatest employee. I'll work hard for you. On day one, boss, my belly hurting enough. My belly hurting. I'll go home. Performance and talk is two different things. I don't get caught up in talk at all. And then they said about structure. The structure will always be created by the person with power to create the structure. So I don't think there'll be any way that a structure will be created where it's even and everyone benefits, especially not in this Western hemisphere under the system that we operate under. For instance, I don't know if you know about Milton Friedman.
No.
Friedman, he's the economist. The world has been running under Milton Friedman economics for the last, I would say, since the 60s, possibly 60s or 70s. All right, so this whole thing is capitalism, unfettered capitalism. Government should have minimal impact. So he was the advisor to Thatcher and Reagan when they sold out everything. Britain sold out all the British gas, the energy, everything they sold was under his guidance. America is the same thing. Everything must be privatized. And that is the system we all operate under. They ran through South America, they ran through Central America. So for instance, if your national telecommunications company outcompeting their company, they will want your assets, right? They want to take control of that. And under the Milton Friedman economics, that's how it should be. The resources should go to the people who have the most ability and resources to capitalize on it, right?
Yeah, capitalism.
So that's So luckily in Trinidad and mostly Caribbean, we have like a mix of not full capitalism. We have the government, strong roles like in Barbados. Most of the people working there work for the government. Tobago, the same thing. Most of them work for the government.
Socialism.
So, well, it's not necessarily socialism. It's just not full capitalism. It's a mix. It's a version.
Yeah.
Because you can't have one extreme. Because if you have extreme, that means once I make a business in Trinidad and it grows to a certain point,
it's a government zone.
Point in time, somebody comes to take my business from me. No, and that is how it is. So you'll have plenty mergers and acquisitions in our country, and then one big company will just come and just buy out that merged company because, and that's how it works. So that's why in Trinidad we sell out the petrochem, we sell out currently, well, close on all these different things. We sell TCL, the pitch lake, all those things sold. Because as a system we are under, we have to sell resources to the people with the most resources, and those are the people in power. So I don't think it'll be as easy as just creating a system where everyone could benefit. Luckily, is the in Game of Thrones, they used to say, winter is coming, winter is coming. Luckily, winter is here on the Western economy. So it's winter in the whole of Europe and North America, and it is spring in the Asian countries, right? So in China, things do well. For instance, let's say consumer confidence, and let's use fashion as the example. In fashion, in 2024, Europeans expect to spend 29% less than they spent last year on fashion. The USA expects to spend 25% less than they spent last year. In China, they expect to spend 7% more. So Europe and America, they're cutting back. They complain about inflation, things bad across there. I even saw someone in America, it was a joke obviously on Facebook. Well, not necessarily a joke, but it was something on Facebook about send a barrel, things hard enough in New York. Right? You want a barrel from Trinidad because things are hard up there, right? So you have to know which wagon we're going to hitch ourselves to. Know when to detach from one system and latch onto the other one. Don't let one drag us down with them.
That's why the conversation between the two sides are very important. And I have an interesting idea that I want to run by. I was reading this book and was talking about how our two political systems, it's grounded in our left and right hemisphere in some sense. Like, it's impossible to have in a system that has free political parties, because human beings normally live like a fish. He was making the argument like a fish lives in its environment. A fish lives in water, and the fish body, the fish whole outlook is built, selected for it to live in that environment. But a human system and the systems that we build, it resembles us and our biology. So we have two hemispheres. We have the left hemisphere and we have the right hemisphere. And we were saying it's not coincidence that we call the right hemisphere conservatism and the left hemisphere more liberal, because the right hemisphere, the way the brain operates, the right hemisphere shows more conservative traits. It wants to maintain certain ideas. It don't like certain change. It likes to be more structured. But our left hemisphere is more free, more open to more ideas. It doesn't like to be under control. And the way we perceive and we think and we move in the world is a continuous conversation between our left hemisphere and our right hemisphere. And he was juxtaposing that idea to our political system. And it was that's President Putin. I was having a conversation with Tucker when he said that, when he said something akin to that, he said, our brain have two, we have one brain, but we have two hemispheres. And if one is not working, we're going to destroy the system. He was actually...
Well, maybe the world is breaking into two hemispheres, one with cheap energy, the other without. And I want to ask you that. If we're now a multipolar world, obviously we are. Can you describe the blocks of alliances? Who is in each side, do you think?
Listen, you have said that the world is breaking into two hemispheres. A human brain is divided into two hemispheres. One is responsible for one type of activities, the other one is more about creativity and so on. But it is still one and the same head. The world should be a single whole. Security should be shared rather than meant for the golden billion. That is the only scenario where the world could be stable, sustainable, and predictable. Until then, while the head is split in two parts, it is an illness, a serious adverse condition. It is a period of severe disease that the world is going through now. But I think that, thanks to honest journalism, this work is akin to work of the doctors. This could somehow be remedied.
Making an analogy to that point. And I was like, it's a brilliant way to see that. How far do we go when we say we don't participate in politics? And I think to be able to fight against the slavery and the neocolonialism, we have to participate deeply in policy. That's my belief. We have to keep our eyes open, not politics. We have to keep our eyes open, very, very conscious of the policies that guides our social arrangements and our environment. So I
would like to add that it's also important. I wouldn't say it's more important or less important. It's also important that we focus on our culture. Culture is what is more important than politics. Culture is more of an impact on people's decision making on a day-to-day basis than the politician. So for instance, a rapper in the States, he know the culture hip hop is this. So I'm going to live this way, or else I would not be a successful rapper. That has to do with by Trump, or it has to do that is about the culture. And then you have a national culture, then you have localized subcultures and so. So once we're able to understand how important culture is and fix our culture, create our culture, and not rely on them, these policies and those things, like I tell you, I unless it's business, because I do consultancy, unless it's business policies, and so I are really not interested. Political policies, I'm going to choose my words carefully, yes? I really have no concern for the games these people play. I guess I'm wrong too long, and I see the tricks played over and over and over.
But what you say makes so much sense, the culture, because they are embedded in the culture. They are embedded. The culture is wider. They are embedded in the culture. So
that's why they have TikTok accounts. That's why they have Facebook accounts. That's why they have Instagram accounts, because they have to have an influence in the culture.
And the culture
is the important thing.
The culture.
That is the challenge.
Because if we are to have that voice and that free voice to be able to have influence in the culture, we need to know what we're influencing, or inspiration. We need to know what we're inspiring against and what we're inspiring towards. And that's where you fall into the realm of what's wrong and right. And culture in itself is grounded in belief. Your culture of a people is the belief system of that people. So if I can change the belief system of that people, I will be plugging holes into the culture of that people without they're aware of it. And how do I affect their belief? Tell you what I do? I create that environment around them within the policy for them to behave the way I want them to behave. So they're totally behaving against their own culture without even understanding that's not how. I guess your culture is your identity. Your culture is some sense is what you believe, what you believe, not just the word believe, but what you hold most valuable. What's most valuable to you and your people? Is it that you hold life valuable? Is it that you hold a choice valuable? What is it as a people that you hold valuable? Do you hold community valuable? Do you hold respect valuable? What's your values? That's what you believe in. That's what you want to make your children do. That's what you want to be embed in your community, in your nation. And this is a lot for and I don't see a lot of persons thinking of those things. I see persons go to the day-to-day and they participate in the
distractions, the Instagram, the TikTok.
Yeah.
But there's no policy, no government policy responsible for having all of our brothers, our sisters with blonde wig and blonde weave. That's culture, that's not policy. Why are you trying to have blonde hair? Why are you trying to have straight blonde hair? You understand? That's not policy, that is culture. Once we could move along that, and we could understand the importance of our culture and the beauty in our culture, and I would say flat, our culture better than their culture. It's a strong, it's a richer culture. And I want to get away from the verses, because at this point in time, we need 21st century, it's hard to be a joint.
Yeah.
So we have the cultures. So we have to move away from this thing where it's white or black.
Yeah.
You know, in Trinidad, we have our culture because of the battle. You know, that created the Trinidad identity, the battle between the former slaves and former slaves. So that battle, still, we need to move away from that. Who is the victor? Who will not take all these spoils? It has to be a shared outcome. It's like game theory in business. If I in business and I want to make all the money, and my business partner mustn't get anything, or my associates must get nothing, it will go nowhere. It will go nowhere. Everyone has to see a benefit in the decisions. Everyone has to see a benefit in the movement forward, or it will not move forward. So it's just like game theory.
Yeah, just like
Make sure your opponent wins something as well.
Just like Stephen Covey, I read Stephen Covey, 7 Habits for Highly Effective People. He said, lose-lose is a bad strategy. Win-lose is a bad strategy. Lose-win is a bad strategy. The best strategy is a win-win situation.
Win is a good strategy.
Yeah, that's the game.
Yeah,
that's the game.
And that's what we have to do now. We have to find that way that both cultures could fit in, express itself, and not be competing against each other. Both parties appreciating each other. That is where we have to go. When we reach there, we win.
But that's the culture. That's the culture. That should be the culture shift. That should be the culture shift where we are not bickering against each other. We are trying to help develop each other in a way that culture of unification. And like you rightly said, the Trinidadian culture, the St. Lucian culture, which is just a minute difference. And we with nationalism, I have a lot of respect for nationalism, but we cannot run away from the fact that nationalism has its limitations, and nationalism limitations like, oh, I'm St. Lucia and all what I care about is what's happening in St. Lucia, and it's my culture, and is that one over there and that one over there. What about the unification? What about the human story and everything? What about our closeness? What about our shared values? What about those things? How can we come together as a Caribbean people first? Let's take care of home. How can we come together as a Caribbean people and understand that a lot of our past is almost the same, and our present, you could say it's the same. So why can't we specify a collective aim among the Caribbean people and formulate a story and to work towards that aim and to help develop ourselves in the global sphere, in the global world, because the world is moving into a more global village with the digital revolution, with the new fourth industrial revolution. So we need to compete as a Caribbean people, and we need to move fast because the other bigger states, they are pushing, and we are not in the conversation at all. China in the conversation, Russia in the conversation, America in the conversation, Japan in the conversation, even Taiwan in the conversation. So why aren't we in the conversation? Africa is in the conversation. What's wrong with us being in the conversation? Are we not smart enough to be able to hold these kind of discussions? Are we not smart enough to come up with solutions to global problems? Must we always be taken care of as a little child that is lost and don't know what he's doing? Those are all the questions.
Our leaders are often summoned to the White House. They will summon the Prime Minister of this island. They will summon the Prime Minister, go and meet with this. And when they go, you might meet with the President of the States. You might meet with some ambassador or some low-lying government official, because guys, we gotta know our place. We gotta know our place. We are reached nowhere. You know your place. Know your place. That's how they look at it. They don't know your place.
Yeah.
You just have to follow instructions. If you give any trouble, they might just have a coup in their country.
Coincidentally.
Again, I'll keep saying it over and over and over and over. You just might have a coup in their country.
Yeah. Well, I think we can stop here for now. I think we're way past 45 minutes, and I think we had a free flowing discussion, and we can always look to do that again, and we can always look to see how we can help each other have a win-win situation. I've seen your CV and your bio, and I can always keep my eyes open if I see anything that's in your interest, and we can continue to speak and have that conversation, and to see how we can further develop that have a collective aim that we both can work towards, and we can help each other achieve our aims.
And that is exactly what the Caribbean leaders are supposed to be saying to each other. Exactly what you just told me is what we should be discussing amongst each other. How could Guyana help Jamaica? How Jamaica could help Barbados? How St. Lucia could help Grenada? How Trinidad could help Haiti? How we could help. Guyana, or they're making rice, or they could feed the whole Caribbean as those initially supposed to be.
Yeah.
You fulfill that need for us. You fulfill this need for us. You fulfill this need for us. And you know, each island, if each island creating is a lot of duplication, a lot of redundancies that's happening. So as I say, the basic business, specialization, divisional labor, basic business. You know, find where you're best at, find where your core competencies are, and explore those, exploit those, and share those with the other partners who may not have those competencies, but they have other competencies. Because I say it again, before we wrap up, we need to keep Haiti in conversation.
Because what you say makes so much sense, and there's an economic theory about that. If it costs you $10 to make 10 pounds of rice, another country with the right climate to make rice, it might cost them at least $2 to make 20 pounds of rice. And even when they import that rice to you, it might cost them $5 to make 20 pounds of rice and to import that rice to you. So, like you said, the area of specialization, and that's what my book is about. My first book, Purpose Driven, The Meaning of Life is Finding the Purpose to Live. The idea that I was pushing forward is that if persons work within the competencies, as you say, and they know exactly the competencies as based on the skills that they have and what they can do, and they give that out to the community, and the farmer is the genuine farmer. The farmer is the person who wants to feed the community. The fisherman is the little boy that like to fish, that like to, and he gets fulfillment in going out and bringing fish for his community, and his community pay him for his service. The garbage man is the man that don't like to see the streets dirty, and he's busy cleaning things all the time. And the teacher is the one that like me, I like knowledge. I like to think. I like to help people grow. I like to help people to develop. So I'm not here busy jealous of the doctor because the doctor has no. I'm doing my thing, and I respect the doctor because you're doing your thing, because we need you, because my little boys and my little children, they're sick and we need to send them to the doctor. So the teacher is bitter because the doctor is the doctor, and the teacher wants to be the doctor, and the toes want to be the eyes, and the mouth want to be the ears, and it doesn't work that way. It's destructive. And every time I get to that point, it brings something to me like, how can we not see? How are we so blind that to see? None is as blind as those that will not see. That you do what you have to do. If you want to be a parent, if you want to be a father, be the best father that you can be. Just like Martin Luther King said. Martin Luther King said, if you are going to be a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper that you can be in the world. If it's mouse traps you want to make, be the best at making mouse traps. That's you. But the world would make a beaten path to your doorstep. We're all busy. I want to business consultant. I want to do what you do. I want to be a teacher. I want to be a this. I jealous of me doing that. I jealous of me doing that. The hand jealous of the leg. The eye jealous of the mouth. How can we function properly? Lack of purpose, lack of meaning. And that kills our country. That idea of jealousy, that idea of the house slave mentality. I must try to outdo my brother instead of try to make my brother do better. And we want to say we're Israel. Israel don't operate that way. If you so much Israel, that's not how Israelites operate. That's not how it is. You want to say black people are Israel. No, that's not how it does, not how they operate. They build each other. They have each other to grow. They live purposefully. They serve the community. That's what we need to do. That's the consciousness we need to move into. Instead of that slavery mentality trying to destroy each other all the time. Jealous of each other.
Where do we go? A political system that we under as well. From the time we're under capitalism, democracy, remember it's all about I, as opposed to we. There's no we ever in any talk like that. So for instance, when COVID first came out, I told people, I said, China going and get through COVID easy, and America going and struggle, because China have the we, and America is the I. So whereas China will say, well, we need to keep ourselves safe, and we need to protect ourselves, in America, they will come out and say, well, I have the right to go outside. I have the right not to wear a mask. I have the right. I mean, things that have been disproven already. But it's still the I versus the we mentality. Once you have that I mentality, it's going to be problems. It's people want to compete. I want to be number one. I want to be number one. You know, as opposed to we rising up together. And that's what I look to what, for instance, what Africa is doing right now. Africa is rising because of the relationship China has with them. China looking for business relations so as you will rise, and when you rise, we will all rise, as opposed to we giving you financial assistance or debt relief where I still have control over you. I have control over you. You know, it's more that the Asian model, the Chinese model is your economy get better, then obviously we will benefit. You know, so that I versus we is not easy to change because of the system we are now. The system where everybody looking out for themselves. I have to be, you know, mentality, we are going away.
Yeah. So my internet is breaking through. I think that's a good place for us to stop.
I enjoy the conversation.
That's a good place for us to stop. We can have a conversation again anytime.
All right, great. I really appreciate it.